Hi,
Hello.
everyone. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Beyond Stardust. I have a very, very special guest this week, Robert Rugg. We are going to be talking about non-duality, discovering your true nature, and hopefully do maybe a little bit of pointing to discover who and what we actually are. Which teaser, as you guys already know, if you've been watching my podcast, it's not this human body. So, hi, Robert.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Better than good.
Good. So as always, I want to get started by hearing a little bit about your story about, pre self-realization, how this awakening happened, and then what your life is like now.
Yeah, sure. Well, I was a seeker, like a lot of people, like seeking to find answers, to different things, wanting to know, what our true nature is, why is there, just questioning everything. Like, why is this happening? Why is that happening? Why is there wickedness? Why do bad things happen to people? So I always had like these questions. So, I would seek for them, so I looked to religion for some of those answers. I looked to different things to try to find answers to those questions. When I really first started getting answers to it, I kind of looked into different things like non-duality, for example. Like I was listening to The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, and in The Greatest Secret on there, they were talking all about, you're discovering your true nature, finding out who and what you truly are. And in there, you could hear, I did the recording because I drive around a lot. So I did like the audio version. So I was listening to it. And then I heard David Bingham, he was talking in there about it. And he said something that really like just captured my attention, in there. He said, that we are the infinite being having a human experience. For some reason, when I heard that just, my intuition or something within me, it just triggered, wow, like, because all this time, I'd be identified, like most of us are as, we just think we're this human being, that we're susceptible to like all this sickness and all these things are happening to us. And we're kind of like, we feel like we're like separate from everything else. Like we don't feel like we're whole and complete with everything. I always felt like separate, like I'm like here and I'm looking out, at the world, this big bad world, and everything's like happening to me. But when I heard those words, that you're the infinite being having a human experience, my true nature is the infinite being, which is formless. I'm not really the human being. So we've always identified with being a human being, which we naturally do. But what's interesting is if you look back on when we were kids, maybe before the age of 2, I mean, everything would just appear in this wide open space of infinite consciousness, of awareness. It would all just come into play, right? We never really took it personal as being an individual, being separate, looking at everything. It would just appear in this universal space of awareness that we are. But then we get identified, with our names. Our mom and dads would call us different names and we would identify with it. So it was really a shift for me when I heard those words. It was kind of like a shift in identity. Like I'm no longer identifying with being a human being, but rather I'm just having an experience as a human being, but I'm really the infinite being, the wide open awake space, which is infinite, which is impersonal. It's not really a person. So what we do is as we're growing up, we identify with being a person. And when you identify with being a person, it's me and my story and like things that I like and these things that happen to me. When really, when you identify with what your true nature is as the infinite being, you're not really touched by those things that are happening because you're whole, you're complete, you're formless, you're the beingness itself. So once you find that out, there's this peace that comes. So I would say doing that seeking and searching up to that point, like I looked to religion, looked to different philosophies, things like that. But what really got me was when I heard The Greatest Secret, that kind of woke me up, or whatever you want to call it, awakening, or just making that shift in identity from identifying with the human being to the infinite being.
Yeah. Yeah, and so you said that before you were looking into different religions and philosophies. Were there anything that you were really into or practicing before?
Yeah, I mean, I look at Christianity, for example.
Mm-hmm.
What about Jesus? And I kind of identify with Jesus a lot.
Mm-hmm.
As as our savior, reading the Bible, like, and a lot of things that you see now, like on the other side, you can kind of look at the Bible and things like that, and it makes a little more sense now. But when you're looking at it, as a separate individual, it looks different. But a lot of that was fulfilling to me, like seeing that, but it didn't totally fulfill me because I was still identified with being like a sinner, and a human being kind of, from that aspect, from that perspective. But once you identify with the infinite being, like you are the infinite being, but you're just having this human experience, that shift is that's when you get like that true peace, that true joy, comes from that. Because whenever you identify with being a human being, you're always susceptible to whatever's happening in the manifestation, right?
Yeah.
You're susceptible to sickness, depression, anxiety, and then you have all these money worries or stressed out or relationships, like all that stuff, because you're so like identified with being separate and as the human being. But when you put it in the perspective of knowing what you truly are as the infinite being, you're infinite. You're all powerful, you're all joyful, you're all happy, and you realize that you're just really this wide open space where everything is coming and going. You're the permanent one, right? So when you come from that perspective, you can kind of enjoy the human experience more. Everything's not like as serious, it's like more peaceful. So the religions and stuff, from the perspective of being a human being, it kind of shifts once you identify with being the infinite being. You kind of just have a different perspective on it.
Yeah. So when you were listening to The Greatest Secret by Rhonda Byrne, which I've mentioned several times in this podcast, because I think it's interesting how the people who have come into my life through this experience and journey have had kind of a similar story to mine. But when you were listening and you heard that we are the infinite being or infinite consciousness having a human experience, what was that? Can you talk a little bit more about what that shift was like? I mean, yes, you understood that, okay, yeah, I am not this human being anymore, but was there, I've heard different people describe the shift differently. I've heard it described as the, consciousness came forward and the mind went into the background. I've heard people say that, I know for me, it was kind of like I slipped into a depression for a week. I was like, wait, what? It was more of it wasn't like oh my gosh, it was a freedom. There was a sense of freedom, but there was also this like, well, none of it matters. So can you explain what that shift maybe looked like or felt like to you?
Yeah, for me, the shift was just a matter of like a knowingness, like, wow, like had I missed this? Like it's what's right here, right now for everyone. Mm-hmm. What's here, and I kind of overlooked it by identifying with the human being. But when you make that shift, it's just kind of like, oh yeah, like I know this. It's almost kind of like I laugh. It's so obvious, like it's just what's happening right here, right now. It's just this beingness, this aliveness. We all know that, but we get distracted because we're identifying, with the mind that's commenting on everything. So you kind of like see through it. Like it's almost like a knowingness, like a shift in like, oh, I understand now. Like, wow, that's what this is. Like, it's just right. Like, I kind of knew that, but now I'm identified with it, and you can kind of see through what the mind's trying to do and comment on everything. And what the mind likes to do too is it likes to come in and say, oh, it's this big experience. Once I heard that I'm the infinite being, all of a sudden, bells and whistles are going off, seeing all things, and and all of a sudden I'm having all this enlightenment. That's not what it is. It's just really a simple, the ordinariness of what we all know. We all know that we're alive. We all know that we're conscious. We all know that we're beingness, but the mind likes to come in and add all these things. Yeah, but I'm robbed with these stories and I have all these things, and in order for me to be enlightened, I have to have all these fireworks go off and all these different things. But really it's just the stillness itself. It's just the calmness, the openness, the open space, just what's right here, right now. It's impersonal. It's just this, and you kind of know it, but you kind of get distracted with it because it's obvious. It's right here for everyone, but the mind really complicates it all and makes it hard to see through.
Yeah, it's interesting because that was kind of what happened with me was the mind saying, oh, but. And you and I have talked about this, in private, but, I must not be self-realized because it's supposed to be this big event and the sky is supposed to open up, and it's like, no, it's not, because we already are that. It's not something we become or something that happens to us.
Yeah, we're always that. It's just that
Yeah.
realize it because the mind's coming in, and then it puts all these expectations on what it should be, but it really is just the simplicity of it. If everyone just drops everything, their thoughts, what they think about themselves, what they think about the past and the future, and if they just step back and just become open and empty, and just be like right here, right now, right here in the now, like what's really right here, right now, it's just our beingness, our aliveness. That's what's here. But then the mind wants to come in and add all of these stories, and about identifying with being a person. Really, I mean, the human being is just appearing within this wide open space. You're always the wide open, awake space, and then the human being appears, and the manifestation appears. Everything's appearing within you. It's not like you're here and everything's appearing within you, but you're always here. You're the permanent, formless, wide open space. And I think that's where the confusion comes in. The mind comes in and says that your true nature is, and what you truly are is, you're Rob, you're this human being looking out here into the big bad world. But really, the world, the universe is the human being, all the human beings. We're really like everything, because we're infinite consciousness. Everything's behind everything is infinite consciousness, and they're just taking forms and shapes and sizes, and we're really just the permanent knowingness of it all, right? Witnessing it all. We're not like this separate, we're the wholeness, we're everything, but we're like no thing, like nothing in a sense, because we're formless.
Yes. I feel like one misconception that people have, that I've seen, is this idea that people who talk about this stuff are framing the mind as the enemy.
Yeah.
But the mind isn't really the enemy. Can you talk about, like, from your perspective, is the mind the enemy?
The mind's the enemy. The mind is a wonderful tool that we can all use to manifest. With the mind, you can train the mind, like, to think about positive things that you want to manifest. Because what happens is, your mind is what's manifesting everything that you see. All this is happening in your mind. So if you dwell on like good things, like your thoughts really do turn to things. So if you're thinking about positive thoughts, things that you like, that you enjoy, those are the things that are going to manifest. But the problem comes in is when people use the mind, maybe they're dwelling on negative things and stuff like that. So then now negative things are going to manifest from the aspect of the mind, because the mind likes to compare things, likes to judge things and stuff like that, and compare things. That's all that's going on, that voice in your head that's doing all that. That's just the mind doing it. But once you come to realize, oh, that's just the mind, the mind can be a good thing, because then you can fill your mind with things that you appreciate. For example, like if you start dwelling on things like, I appreciate this about my life. I'm so happy that I have this, or that I have a house, I have a place to live, I have a family. Look, I can breathe this air. Like, you just, like the simple things in life, you dwell on those things with your mind. So your mind can be used in a positive way to manifest beautiful things, just by starting even just with appreciating just the everyday things that we all have. And that could really make a difference in what you're experiencing, because we're still having the human experience, right? Even though we know we're the infinite being, we're having the experience of being a human, but you could really add to that experience. You can make it a positive life, a positive manifestation, just by appreciating what you have, and just realizing what you're becoming aware of, what you're thinking about, because your thoughts really do manifest, and your beliefs, what you believe about. So those things are good to be in tune with that. And when you come from the perspective of the infinite being, there's infinite possibilities out there that you can have. And there's this knowingness of that, of how the mind works. So the mind is really not the enemy. It's a good thing. I just think a lot of times, because the way we're raised, or life experiences that happen to us, then we start getting these negative thoughts, and we start commenting on it. But if we just step back and realize that we're aware of what that thought is in our head, we're aware of that's the mind, we can sort of train the mind, so to speak. There's really no mind. Like, I don't see a mind. We all see a mind. There's not a mind here. It's just our thoughts, right? So if we can just make that shift, and just appreciating and having positive thoughts, you really will see a difference in your life experience as a human being.
Yes. And it's, what I say is, like, it's just, the mind isn't an enemy. It's a wonderful, like, computer program. It's a computer program that we can use for our benefit. It's the problem is when we identify with the program and what the program is telling us.
Yeah, the problem comes in is when you identify like before I was, I was doing my searching, everything. The reason why I was searching because everything was going wrong in your life. Like you're susceptible to depression. You're questioning, why is this happening to my family? Why is these bad things happening in the world? You start questioning all those things, and a lot of that is because you're just identified with your mind. Like you think that your true nature, that you think you are your mind, you think you are that voice in your head, you think you are just this separate human being. But when you come to realize, wait, I'm the infinite being, I'm just having this human experience, it kind of shifts everything into perspective. So now you can step back from that, right? And then you can, train the mind to be more positive and have more positive manifestations. But you're not your mind. But once you make that shift, you're right. It's all about identity. It's just identifying, with the infinite being rather than the human being.
Yes. Yes. So how would you say, I want you to go a little bit deeper, if you can, into what kind of changes happened when you came to this realization that you are this infinite being and that you are not Robert.
Yeah, it's not like I said earlier, it's not like these big, like large changes or these fireworks going on. Like I'm just like an ordinary guy, like everyone else. Right? I'm a typical guy. But the biggest things that I noticed, like in making the shift from the human being to the infinite being, is like, it's kind of like an okayness here. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter like what's happening in the manifestation, because that can't touch you. What you truly are is the infinite being, the wide open, awake space. You're the formless. You're not really the human being. So it kind of gives you like this peace about it. Like things can be happening and the mind might come in and judge it. Oh, this is bad. This is good. But when you come from the respect of the infinite, you have this piece of knowing it's all the same. It's all okay. It's all just happening within me, the open space. And so you have like this deep peace where you can't really be affected by what's happening in the manifestation, in the sense that that there's an okayness here, and whatever's happening in the human experience it's just that. It's just the human experience. So I would say the biggest thing that happened with me is just, I noticed for myself is there's just this deep peace that I have no matter what's happening in the manifestation. Whereas prior to that, whatever would happen in the manifestation, that we get upset, your emotions will be all over the place. But now it's just kind of like, it's kind of like a relaxation. Like I just feel relaxed, peaceful. Like everything to me is just like, I just want to, just want to show love to people, and you just want to be happy and be loving. And I don't know, I just more joyful, I would say, like more happy, easier going, like not so stressed out, just chill. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like deep peace, that joy, the love you have for everything. You realize, everything is you anyway. So love everything, because everything is infinite conscious. Everything you see is consciousness. Everything is you. So love everything, right? Because you're loving yourself by doing that. And just appreciation. I'd say a much deeper appreciation than I ever had before. Sometimes we take things for granted when we're identified with being a human being. Now it's like, I appreciate every little thing. Like looking out at that tree right there. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. Like I appreciate it, just like the ordinary, simple things. It doesn't take much for me to be happy. Like I can just be right here. I'm already happy. You know what I'm saying? Like no matter, it doesn't matter what's happening in I don't need to have this relationship. I don't need to have this amount of money. I don't need to live in this particular house. I don't need to go on this particular trip. I'm just happy from within, because it's really, happiness is like an inside job. And then it kind of flows out into the manifestation. And then those things just seem to attract to you. You know what I'm saying? You're like, and what's interesting is those other things just come to you like effortlessly. Because really what we are is effortless being. Like it takes no effort just to be. So we're whole already. We're complete already. We don't need to really be self-improved or do this or do that. That's coming from the human being's perspective. But when you realize you're the infinite being, you're already whole. You're already complete. And everyone is that already. Yes. And so when you realize that you're the effortless being, that which is effortless is your being. You are. You're here, you're being, you're alive, you're consciousness. And it takes no effort to be. So there's just that identifying with that effortlessness, knowing that that's what you are. And so all those other things just get attracted to you and just manifest effortlessly.
Yeah. So I think another misconception that some people may have is this idea that like once you discover your true nature, you and I say it like that because it's not, It's a realization more than it is like an event that happens to you. So like I try to be careful about the words that I use, but for lack of a better way of describing it, when you discover your true nature, people think that all of a sudden there's no more challenges in life, no more problems, no more negativity, no more anything. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I still have challenges in my life. Are you kidding me? Like, oh, like money things that would come up, relationship things that would come up, maybe health stuff that would come up. Those things still come up. They don't change. But you know what? When you're identified with the infinite being rather than the human being, think about that for a second. Like when you're identified with the human being, everything is so scary. Everything's happening. You think you're just this body mind and that's it. And then once this is gone, you're gone. Imagine like thinking that. Like I used to think that, a lot of people do. Once you realize you're the infinite being, like you're here forever and ever and ever and ever. You're infinite and you're formless. This is just a body that's appearing in this wide open space, you know, of awakeness, of awareness. So nothing that's happening in the manifestation can happen to you. So when you have that peace, when you come from that perspective, you know, then you know that you kind of like have this peace about it.
Yeah.
And what was your question? I kind of forgot what you said.
It was just, do negative things, do bad, like not bad things. I don't want to label like that, but do like challenges happen? Do negative things happen?
Yes, they do, but they just, the sizzle's taken out of them. Does that make any sense? Like, it's just kind of, yeah, that's, there's an okayness here. This too shall pass. Like it'll come and then it'll just go. Like everything else.
Yeah.
You don't react as much. Kind of like, okay, that's there. I see that. I acknowledge that. I'll give that thought a hug, or I'll give that situation a hug, or that thing that the mind's receiving as negative a hug, and show love to it. And it still happens. It's just, you're just not as reactive to it. And there's an okayness there, and there's a peace there with it. And what you find in life too, that I've noticed when you come from that perspective, identifying with the infinite being, is, you're not kind of like before, as the human being, we resist everything. Whatever you resist is going to persist. It keeps persisting. But when you come from the infinite being and you allow it to be there, you hug it, you allow it to come out, there's no resistance to it. It's like, okay, you can be here. Then it just comes and it goes really quickly when you do that. But when you start things, it kind of holds it in the manifestation. And then from the human experience perspective, then you're kind of stuck in that loop. But if you can just learn to, allow it to be there and not resist it and be okay with it, and show love to it and just let it be there. It comes and it goes pretty quickly.
Yeah. The way that I look at it is like your main state of being shifts. So it's like you're no longer the sufferer who lives in pain, who lives in sadness, who lives in those type of feelings, even though the main state of being is that of peace and joy, even though these things may arise for a brief moment. And like, I like how David puts it, invitations may arise into these things. You don't stay there. You don't live them there. They move through almost just as fast as they came.
Yeah. When they're coming up, I mean, if you come from the perspective of being separate, and that's kind of like what it's like identifying with the human being, is like, you feel like you're this separate individual and all this is happening to me. But when you shift and you identify with the infinite being, the wide open awake space, you realize that this is all happening within me. It's not happening to a me or a separate I. Everything is whole. Everything is complete. There's just this oneness here of the infinite being. And all this is other stuff that's coming and going is not you. Think about it. Anything that's coming and going can't be you. But you're that which is permanent, where everything else is coming and going. So you're the permanent witnessing of it all, the knowingness of it all, the formless, and the all loving, all kind. So everything's happening like within you. So when you come from that perspective, you're not separate. Everything is whole and complete. When you're separate, that's when it becomes, I notice that's when the issues happen, the problems come in.
Yeah. So do you feel that even after this experience that you're still learning more, there's still more to, so I guess what I'm trying to ask is, I feel like another misconception is that once you're there, but what I've found from my own experience and from talking to other people is that there's still more that you get to learn. There's still more that you get to, like, you still grow in a way, even though that what you really are, there's nowhere to grow to. You still, like, from the human perspective, there's still growth and learning that gets to happen.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, really, it's just this. It's just what's
Mm-hmm.
happening here in this wide open space. But it's never like you're always there. But we always have you're more in tune, like where your intuition, like your
Mm-hmm.
intuition is your knowingness. It knows everything. But when you're having the human experience, you're always constantly learning things about what's happening in the human experience. But from the infinite being's perspective, it's already whole and complete, and it's not really happening to anyone because there's no separate individual that it's happening to, or any separate individual that's learning this, because the infinite being knows everything already. But even though you're identified with the infinite being, you're still having the human experience. I think that's where the confusion with people comes in. We're still having this human experience, right? I mean, we're sitting here talking right now. I mean, things are happening to me as a human being. It's just that I'm identified with the infinite being, so it's making the human experience a lot easier, a lot better, a lot more enjoyable to have the human experience. But your intuition is what your knowingness is. It's just kind of like whatever's happening in the manifestation when you're intuitive into your intuition, which is like that deep feeling, that knowingness that you have, that gut feeling. It's just kind of like your intuition. It kind of just, as the effortless being, it just comes to you effortlessly. Like you just know what to do in that particular moment. But you're always having new human experiences, but you're always in touch, with the effortless being and your intuition, and that knowingness just comes up, at the right time. So there's always things that are going to be happening, and you never really know it all, especially from a human perspective. We don't know anything, right? It's all has to do with identifying, with the infinite being and letting that flow through you. Right. And let that knowingness come up, just not resist it, and just have faith in it, I want to say, or believe it, or just really know it. I don't know what the right word is, but that knowingness of it. And then it just comes up kind of automatically to take over. But yeah, you're never just always there, like you said.
Yeah. So for people listening who they're hearing this and they're going, oh, I want to discover my true nature. I want to have self-realization. I want to experience this infinite being. What would you say to them?
I would say, well, just realize that you're already that already. It's just that the mind's coming in, commenting, saying that you're not. And I would say the biggest thing you can do is just become open and empty, and just kind of just drop all your thoughts that you have about yourself, all the beliefs you have about yourself, and just kind of just be like right here, right now. And then just ask yourself, look in your own experience. Don't go by what I'm saying, but just look in your own experience. If you just look around right now, just look around at the open space that's here, right now. You know that you're alive. You know that you're aware. You know that you're awake. Can you just stay there? Do you have to go anywhere else? Can't you just rest right there? Just be right here, right now, and just drop all your thoughts about the past, the future, all the beliefs that you have. Can you just become open and empty and just trust and just be right here and just rest right here and just see what arises? And when you're seeing what arises, you're knowing that that's not you. You see the thoughts coming up, you see them coming and going, that's not you. You know that the beliefs and stuff, that you're aware of what those beliefs are, so the beliefs can't be you. So just look for what's you. And when you look for what's you, your intuition, your intuitiveness will pick up on what you are, because you're already the infinite being that already knows this. It's just that you're identifying, with being a human being rather than understanding. It's just an experience, and experiences come and go. So the best advice you can give people in identifying with it is just ask yourself, what am I really? What's really here right now? What is it? What is it that I know for sure? What's one thing we all know for sure is that we're alive, that we're aware, that we're awake, that we're conscious. Nobody can argue that. Just the fact that you're hearing that, that you're alive and you're awake. Can you just stay there? The naked truth of that alone, the simplicity of that alone, sitting there, resting in that. Can you just rest there? Can you just realize that the thoughts they're just coming and going, that it's not you, that they're okay to come and go, that we don't have to judge them, that we can be the all-allowing, wide open space that we already know that we are. See, intuitively, we already know it. It's already there. We know it already intuitively. Everyone does. Everyone knows it. And there's an okayness here. Even if you want to entertain, not knowing it, you want to deny it because you want to have different experiences. That's okay too. It's okay just to have these human experiences. It's okay not even to realize your true nature, because you're already. You're just not conscious of it, but everyone will be at some point or another. They'll realize it. When the body goes, everyone will realize what they truly are. I just think it's kind of nice to, while we're still in the body, to realize that we're the infinite being, because it just makes the human experience so much better when you realize.
Something you said brought up a question that some may have. Would you say that identification with the individual, with this illusion of being an individual, or I don't know, some people I guess call it the ego, what is the source of suffering in this world?
Well, people identify with being an individual, being a human being. And that's okay to identify with that. And like you said, the suffering does come when we're not realizing that we're the allness. We really are the allness, the wholeness, the completeness of this wide open space with everything manifesting within us. But when you pull back and you become a separate individual, think about it. Now everything's happening to this separate person. That's not here. There's no person here. Like, look around. There's nothing here. It's just this. It's just what's manifesting, and you're the knowingness of it. So the suffering would come in is when you're identifying with being separate, right? Whenever we're identified with being separate, that's when we start to feel this so-called suffering, that's here, to this so-called person that's here, but nobody can show me where this person is. It's just all in the mind. You're just making up this story about what you are because you're basing it on what your life experiences are, what your parents telling you are. And so there's this image that you have in your head of what you are. It's this phantom image of what it is, and that's what's being attacked. But that's not you. It's not real. It's just this. It's just you're the knowingness of it all. And when you realize that, then that suffering, there's really not that suffering there, because the suffering comes in when you identify with being separate.
Yeah. So, I'm sure some people would say, well, that's nice and everything, but like, what about, you see apparent things happening out there in the world of like wars and groups of people suffering and atrocities. If we're all the infinite being and it's all like, how does that make that okay?
I would say just don't watch the news, cancel your cable channel. Again, it goes back to what you're focused on, right? We can all choose to focus on what we want. The human experience always has, two ranges. It has the extreme and then the good, the bad. There's always, the yin, the yang, whatever you want to call it. You always have both sides of it. There's two sides of everything, and we can just choose to focus on what we want. So it's a choice, really. You can focus on the good things that are happening in the world, or you can choose to go with the so-called, whatever the mind wants to label, the bad things happening in the world, and just realize it's not happening to anyone, because there's no person here. It's just what's happening. But from the perspective of the infinite being, there's no labels on it. Like the mind wants to put labels on, oh, this is what's happening is good. This is what's happening, what's bad. But if we just come to identify with, well, we're the wide open, awake space, the loving space, the all allowing space, the joyful, happy space, the impersonal space. So it's not happening to anyone. It's just what's happening without the labels, And then if you find yourself identifying with, these wars or these things that are happening, the media is hyping up, or these things, maybe these things are really happening, but from the human perspective, they're happening and they're real, and the families and people that are affected by them are really feeling it because they're really identified with being the human being. But when you come to the perspective of the infinite being, there's that peace, that knowingness that's not who and what you are. See, it all goes back to identifying what you're identifying with. So if you're identifying with that, if you can just step back and make the shift in identifying with the infinite being rather than the human being, you would find that you're not really dwelling on those kind of things. And there's an okayness there that that's kind of like an illusion in a way, because it's just coming and it's just going, and everything really is okay. Everything that's happening, what you truly are is whole and complete. What you truly are is all loving, all joyful, all the time. Really, it's not really affected by what's happening in the manifestation when you really make that shift to the infinite being. But you still have compassion. I mean, we were all there. Many of us identified with being, the human being. We didn't know that we were the infinite being. So there's compassion there, right? There's love there, and you never want to see people suffer. I mean, you want to love people. You're kind to them. You try to put yourself in their place, like with the things that you see happening, and you just wish them love, and you have just so much love and compassion for them that you just want it to overflow like a tidal wave into the world. And so it's just a lot of just where you're coming from, what your perspective is, what you're conscious of, what you're identifying with, and then just show and being understanding and compassionate, and loving to people, and that's really what it's all about. And there's this like deep peace, with people and situations and things that are happening with the wars and the wickedness or whatever you want to see that your mind wants to go to. You just want to wash it over with love, right? Passion for people. You just want to give them all a hug. You want to hug everything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I want to go back to something that you said before, which was that like, I'm just a regular guy. Because I think this is really important, especially for the audience, and one of the things that actually I heard David say about, there's just like regular, average, everyday people, housewives, like grocers, like this, that the self-realization is happening to. And I feel like, well, I don't just feel like there can be this idea that quote unquote enlightenment, self-realization can only happen to people who have been like, sitting in ashrams for years, meditating, dedicating their whole lives to meditation, going and becoming a monk in the mountains in Nepal or, in Tibet. And the truth is that everyone has access to this. Now, I know that you, while we decided that we were going to call you a spiritual guide, it's not like you shifted your work and now you go and like hold satsang every Sunday. You still run your business. You still have like a normal everyday life. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's still, everything is ordinary, and we're already the infinite being already, and it's just that people are just identifying, with being separate, and it goes back to being separate. But I'm nobody special. I'm just an ordinary guy, still run a business, still have to live in this world, and your kind of intuition takes over, and it's just more like of an effortless kind of living, right? When you come from the perspective of the effortless being, is it's kind of just like you kind of just follow the flow of it, what feels effortless, what feels right, what feels joyful. Like you just kind of follow that flow, so to speak, and all the other things seem to line up. But I mean, you still have to live in the world, right? What did Jesus say? You live in the world, but we're no part of the world. That you just kind of take it from that perspective, like we're the infinite being, but we're still having this human experience. So we still go to work, or we still run a business. That's what I do. I'm an ordinary who does that. You still have relationships, with family and dating and all that kind of stuff. You still go on trips. You still have fun. You still express your joy and your happiness, and you still live like an ordinary life. I'm just an ordinary guy who, and all of us are just ordinary. We're all ordinary, right? We're all the infinite being. We're just identifying with being a separate human being, but we're really just having the experience of it. We're just identifying with like that's all that we are. We're just this separate individual. But if everyone could realize that we were really the infinite being, and no matter what what you are, what the world says you are in life, like rich, poor, doctor, lawyer, construction worker, entrepreneur, whatever it is, it's just the mind identifying with that. It's just, but it's open to everybody because we're already that. It's just, we're just not identified with it. We're just distracted, so to speak. But we are, though to be, or even if you want to say distracted, whatever, everything's flowing effortlessly anyway, because you're always the infinite being, and the realization will come now, later, whenever, doesn't matter. It's okay, because really no time anyway, but that's a whole nother subject. But it's just what's here, what's happening right now. And it's okay for no matter wherever the mind's telling you are in life, it's okay.
Yeah. And going with that same misconception, there's also this idea of like, oh, well, if I to have this this spiritual realization, I have to give up everything. I can no longer have like a normal life. I can no longer like nice things. I can no longer, go on fancy vacations. You have to give up all material attachment to material things. And yes, I agree, the attachment part, but it's like, no, you still get to enjoy the human experience. That's what we're here. We're here to have that experience and have it with joy and play, right?
Yeah, what I find is that when you identify, like if you just know yourself as a separate individual, as a separate human being, then everything in life is hard and everything is serious and everything is a problem. But when you identify, with knowing what your true nature is, what everybody is the infinite being, you have to understand the infinite being is whole, it's complete, it has everything it needs nothing. It can't get sick, it can't die, it doesn't get depressed, it's happy, it's joyful for no reason. There's no reason. So when you have that happiness and joy, you're kind of attracted to what's fun and what's enjoyable, and you want to express your joy, you want to express your love, that unconditional love. There's no conditions required to love. From the infinite being's perspective, it loves everything, no matter what's happening or whatever the mind's saying, that if it's good, bad, it did this, it did that, don't matter. So you still live your life. I mean, you're attracted to expressing what things are joyful, what things are fun. I mean, and those are the things that you get attracted to, that you want to have in your life experience. So you focus on those things. It's all a matter of what you're focusing on, what you're thinking about, what perspective you're coming from, what you're identified with. And when you identify with what your true nature is, what you truly are as the infinite being, the all loving, all kind, all joyful, you're going to be doing those kind of things in life. You'll go on cruises, you'll go work out at the gym, you'll hang out with your family, you'll do fun things with friends, and you'll be happy, you'll say hello to people, you'll make everyday things like joyful, you'll smile, you'll be encouraging, you'll be uplifting to people just in your everyday life. And people can like feel that energy from you, that positive, that vibe, or whatever you want to call it, that aura or that energy field or whatever. There's that, it just intuitively, people can just feel it coming off you, and they want to be part of that. And the reason why they do is because that's what they truly are anyway. They're just not realizing it because they're identified with just being a human being. They don't realize their true nature. Everybody's a beautiful being. Everybody's the infinite being. When I look at anyone, they're just like me. Everyone's equal. There's nobody above anybody else. We're all the same. We're all the infinite being. There's no specialness here to any of us. We're all special. We're all the same. It's just this.
Yeah. Would you say that let's dive into manifestation a little bit, because it's one topic that I have a similar, I've actually very much the same view as you. It's like, okay, yes, we are this infinite being. However, we are still having a human experience. And this is one of the things that I generally like veer away from non-duality on, because it's focused on like, there is nothing, there's no one here. It's just this consciousness, which is true. But right. However, we cannot deny that we're having a human experience, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we're all still having the human experience. We can't deny that. But all the things you said is true. Like we're not a separate individual. It really is this, and we are already whole and complete, and we have all of that. But the fact remains, is what you said, is we still are having this human experience. Can any of us deny that? I mean, we're all having it. So when it comes to manifestation, what's manifesting, we're looking at around us, and we're seeing what's manifesting, what life experiences are happening, and we want to have ones that are joyful, ones that are healthy, ones that are upbuilding, and ones that are fun, right? And so manifestation is just all about, our thoughts, right? Just paying attention to the thoughts that are coming up. We can choose to identify with whatever thoughts we want, right? We have thoughts that can come up, thoughts, if we don't like the thought, we don't have to log into it, so to speak. We can just let it pass. We'll welcome it and give it a hug, and it's okay to go. And then the thoughts that we like, then we can identify with those thoughts and, oh, that sounds nice. I'd like to do that. And then find matching other thoughts to it. Ooh, okay, that looks nice. How is that happening in the world? Oh, this person's doing that and they did that. And you can kind of reverse engineer what people are doing. And then you could manifest it. So a lot of it is just paying attention to your thoughts that you're having and holding in mind what it is that you want. And not only holding it in your mind, but believing it. Because if you don't believe it, then it's not going to manifest. And if you have any contrary thoughts to what you're holding in your mind, it kind of neutralizes the manifestation. So if you want to manifest what you want, then just hold in mind what you want and really believe that you can have it, that you deserve it. A lot of it, things don't manifest for people, things that they want, is because I found in talking to them, is because they just don't feel like they deserve it, or they don't believe it can happen to them. But if you realize that you're the infinite being and there's infinite possibilities, and that anything can happen, and that you realize how it works, is think about anything in your life that's manifested. I mean, I think about the house that I'm in. How did that manifest? I just started thinking, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have a house and not live in an apartment? Oh yeah, that would be nice. Okay, well, how are all these other people, how do they have houses? What are they doing? Oh, okay. Like they come to a realtor, right? So, you start thinking about that. And so these different things manifest, based on what you're thinking about, what you're dwelling about. And they just kind of happen naturally through the thought process. If you start thinking about things that you want, then you start looking at how things are happening. You can do that for yourself in your own life. You just dwell on those things, and then the next thought will come. Okay, well, now I contacted the realtor. Okay, now we'll go out and look at houses. Okay, now we'll go about the financing part. Like, how does that work? And it just kind of just flows by what you're focused on. So a lot of it's what you're focused on, and then believing that you deserve it, and that you are the infinite being, and that your desires will be taken care of. If you want to say whatever term you want to use, whatever it is that you're feeling inclined, that you're resonating with, will happen for you. But a lot of it's just what you're focused on, what you believe, what your thoughts are, and coming from the perspective that you deserve it, and that you're the infinite being, that you have infinite possibilities and you deserve it. And the way I kind of look at it is like, the universe, is here to provide everything that we want. The universe is within us, right? It's like our concierge in the sky, right? It wants to deliver everything to us. It wants to give us what we want. I mean, that's where I come from. And I find from that perspective, things manifest incredibly. And it's an incredible life. The life experience is meant to be enjoyed. It's meant to be happy. It's meant to be joyful. It can be that way if you focus that way, or it can be the other way. Maybe you want to have a different kind of experience, whatever it is that you want. And you're telling the universe, or you're telling whatever you're dwelling on is how you're voting, right? So what are you talking about? What are you focused on? What are you thinking about? How do you feel about what you truly are? Do you believe you deserve it? Do you believe you're the infinite being? Do you believe that your thoughts and what you focus on actually turn to manifestation? Do you understand your beliefs that you have? Any limiting beliefs that you have? Can you let them go? Can you just let them go and realize that you're the infinite being, that you can have anything you want? Like, can you really believe that? Like, can that come from your beingness? Can you understand what you truly are? And when you come from that perspective, it's a beautiful life. It really is. Like, the human experience can be really beautiful, really enjoyable. It's meant to be. We deserve that. It's beautiful. Life is beautiful.
Yeah, you said something that I wanted to expand upon, and that was, when you realize that you're the infinite being and that there is, infinite possibilities, and you can really drop the limiting beliefs on what you deserve or what you're worthy of or what you can have. And at the same time, when you see other people who have created a certain life or have manifested certain things experienced in their lives, when you realize that we're all that infinite being, like there's no hierarchy, that person isn't like more worthy of that thing than you. That person isn't more anything than you, then that you are no different than that other person. You are the same. It opens up that understanding and belief that you have equal access to that thing as well, that manifestation.
Yeah, there's no hierarchy. I mean, anybody that's listening to this, I mean, you can manifest a castle or you can manifest, a nice shirt. I mean, it doesn't matter. Anyone can. We're all equal. We're all the infinite being. It's just a matter of what we're believing. Like some people believe, oh, I'm limited, like I'm poor, or everything goes wrong for me. Or like if you're identifying with that, well, guess what's going to happen? That's the thoughts that are going to come. And then that's what you're going to believe. And you're going to believe them into existence because you're going to put your emotions into it. When you put your emotions into a belief, now it really pops in the manifestation. So, I mean, the feelings and the emotions that you put into your beliefs and your thoughts are very powerful in manifesting. So if you're having limited beliefs, that's what you're going to limit. If you believe that you're unlimited, which you are, your true nature is unlimited. So there's unlimited with everything. Put unlimited as the first word in front of anything that you want, because that's the truth of what can happen. That's possible.
Yeah. So you have a wonderful YouTube channel where you talk about all this stuff. What inspired you to create that channel?
That was so funny how that went about. I just remember I just wanted to express like how I was feeling and what I knew. And I just wanted to share it with other people. So I just started the YouTube channel because my kids, what I did before was I had a YouTube channel where I did like cooking stuff, like with my kids. So I knew about YouTube. And so I said, so then I started getting more interested in, I want to share like, what I learned, about self-realization. And I don't know, maybe somebody else will resonate with it. And so then I just started the channel and I just started doing a couple of videos here and there. And, next thing you know, I'm like over like 1,000 videos. I'm like, how did this happen? It just kind of flowed like effortlessly. And then people would contact me through there and I would just share like I'm sharing with you. And some people found it helpful. So I'm like, cool. It feels good to like share what you know with people. There's an inner joy in that,
Yeah.
And it kind of just flowed like effortlessly and it just goes where it goes,
Yeah.
So kind of fun too. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. When I've watched some of your videos on there, and you can definitely sense that infinite joy and infinite peace radiating through you when you're talking on those videos. So it was a really pleasant experience to just sit there and watch them.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So can you share what the name of your YouTube channel is? And I'll put it in the links too, but just so people can hear it.
Yeah, it's Effortless Being. It's what our true name is, Effortless Being. If you type that in YouTube, you'll be able to find it. And then my email's in there on the YouTube if anyone has any questions or anything like that.
Okay. And then I know that that you I don't know. Actually, I don't know. Are you open to conversations around this with people? Do you have sessions or anything like that? Or is it just kind of like casual email me?
Well, yeah, the way it's been flowing is on my YouTube channel. People will just contact me like through the email, and then I kind of just take it from there. And yeah, I've been having conversations with people and things like that, and just let it flow from there and just see which way it goes from there. But yeah, that's kind of like how it's been flowing right now is people just contacting me through the email. And then we set up, I may do Zoom calls or have one-on-ones with them or talk with them. We just kind of go from there.
Okay, great. I've really enjoyed this conversation and having you on this podcast. Before we wrap things up, I want to ask you, do you have any, you actually did give a lot of information, a lot of tips, but do you have any additional tips or advice for people who are still in seeking mode? One of the things that's really interesting about this is that it's so simple and it's right there. And it's right there. It's already who we are. It's so obvious yet so like hidden. And so people make it more complicated than it needs to be, or people or because it's so simple, it stays so hidden. And so do you have any advice for people to discover this for themselves?
Yeah, I would say just give up. Up the seeking. I mean, that's kind of the way it was for me. You do all this seeking and stuff, and you get to the point where you're exhausted, and you give up. And then once you just give up and you relax and you just say, okay, what is it that I really know? Let's keep it real. Like, what is it that I really know here? Well, I know that I exist. Okay, let me just stay with that. And if you just stay with that, you'll realize what your true nature is. It'll just flow from there. If you just keep it simple and just realize what's right here, right now, what is it that I really know? Okay. And then I always say, can you stop being now? Can you? Can anyone stop being now? No, who can argue with that? We're the beingness. And your beingness, your consciousness, that's not a human being. That's that which is aware of even the human being. So it's just kind of right there. It's what's simple. It's what's right here, right now.
Yeah. Great.
Oh,
I laugh because I totally get it, but there would have been a point where I would have been like, give up. What do you mean, give up?
What I mean is just stop right here, right now, and just be right here, right now, and just, what is it that you really know? You know that you exist. So can't you just stay there? Why does it have to be more than that? Why does the mind have to come in and make it so complicated as to more of what it is? Why can't we just rest with that's what it is? It's just this. Why can't we just sit there? What is it that's making you say that it can't be just that? Ask yourself that. Like, but this is what I know. I know that I exist. I know that I'm beingness, that I'm formless. That I know that. Like, your intuition knows it. And it'll reveal it to you at the right time.
Okay, Robert, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to put your links to your YouTube or the link to the YouTube channel down below for people to be able to watch some of your videos and be able to maybe send you an email if they would like. And I think this is a wonderful conversation. It was very clear, very thorough, and I hope that it helps a lot of people.
Me too.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening. Okay, bye, Robert.
Bye.